All right, welcome back to Keepin the Comics. So Storm essentially becomes a god, but at the same time, she's also in the process of dying, which makes this kind of a weird but interesting thing going on at the same time. But first, we have to talk about what leads up to this and how this series here is going to basically tie into a series that's going to be coming out in February of 2025 here, which is going to be One World Under Doom. Now that Doom is the Sorcerer Supreme. So let's actually get into it, right? So just like the other X-Men stories, this one picks up post-Krakoa. And we begin with the grand opening here of the Storm Sanctuary. And forgive me, guys, if I sound horrible right now, under the weather, so forgive me here. But what's going on here, right, is that this event is being broadcast live and reporters are buzzing with speculation right now because Storm might announce the fact that she's going to be running for Congress, especially after what she did in Oklahoma City. So what happened here in Oklahoma City is that there was some devastating shockwaves that were tearing through the entire city here, causing massive amount of destruction here. So Storm, along with her friend Frenzy, who, by the way, Frenzy is currently right now a part of the X Factor team, so you can actually see her in that ongoing series right now. And as soon as they land, another shockwave heads straight directly towards them. Now, Storm, you know, she's like, hey, I got this. And she uses her powers and she's able to actually stop the shockwave from getting into anyone here. But then under the rubble, they discovered that there was a trapped family that was there. And so Frenzy, she rushes to save them while Storm holds off the shockwave. And then Storm comes on a little bit later on to come help her as well. Now, there's an interesting moment here as a Frenzy lifts more debris to rescue the other civilians. And she notices that one of them is wearing an Orcus shirt, which of course, we know how mutants feel about Orcus, but more importantly, based on the current X-Men series that are going on right now, we know that Orcus is prime and center as it pertains to like the mutant growth hormone that's going on right now, where they're manufacturing mutants. So we know that there's even more hate towards Orcus at this current moment. So Storm snaps her out of it and says, like, listen, we save everybody no matter what. And as they continue rescuing people, Frenzy shouts out to Storm that more shockwaves are coming. So Storm, she gets up for it here, but these shockwaves here, it's actually more than one at this particular time. And within that shockwave there's a branch that propels directly towards Storm and pierces her skin. But of course, Storm being the badass, right, she pulls out the branch, but she's starting to bleed heavily here. And she does use her lightning to cauterize the wound. And then Frenzy, of course, suggests, he's like, you probably should get some medical attention. But Storm insists, she's like, we do not have time for that. So Storm begins to wonder, like, what's going on with these shockwaves? So she begins to go and try to investigate as to what is causing this. So she comes across a body of water here that is completely lifeless right now. You can see the animals there. They're all basically all skeletons. The water is pretty much essentially all gone. And then looking ahead, she spots a power plant. So she's thinking to herself, okay, that this must be where all this is coming from here. But before she can get too close, another shockwave hits. Now, this time, Frenzy manages to stop it herself. Meanwhile, though, Storm, she starts to vomit. So there is a clear sign now that she has radiation poisoning. So then what Storm does is that she ends up grabbing a door here and she heads directly into the power plant. Now, as she ventures a little bit deeper, she's expecting to see like toxic spills or radiation leaks or something going on here. But when she gets to the meat of the matter, she finds a mutant child that is surrounded by dead bodies. And the child is like, I am sorry, I can't stop myself. The more I try, the worse it gets. Please, Storm, kill me. So it's clear this boy just manifested his mutant powers, which is a coming of age event, of course, that Storm has witnessed many times. So she feels empathy for this boy. She hugs him, which calms his powers and then stops the destruction. So then 3 days later, right, the public believes that the disaster was caused by the engineers at the power plant, who are working on alien kaijus, by the way. So the media is interviewing people affected by the tragedy. There's actually one woman that mentions how she's done so many different war tours, and because she's related to one of the dead engineers, that things aren't going so well for her right now. So Storm decides to call one of her Avenger friends, because now she is a part of the Avengers. Just in case you haven't caught up with that aspect of it yet, she is a part of the Avengers team right now. So she calls Iron Man and she asks him to run numbers to figure out what might have caused the situation here at the power plant. Now, Iron Man tells her, he's like, listen, I've run about 860 million calculations. I don't know if he's like, this is like hyperbole or if it's actually like legit, but he's like, I've run all of these calculations here on multiple machines using algorithms designed by Reed Richards, Forge, Riri, Shuri, etc. He's like, I reluctantly inform you that the disaster that happened here was caused by the birth of a mutant and his powers and not the engineers. Now, Storm is not surprised by this. She knew this. She was just hoping that something else was what caused it. So now she's facing a tough decision here. She's like, do I stay silent and let the mutants have this win? Or does she tell the truth to defend the honor of the deceased engineers? So then later on, back in Atlanta, well, we came from the past, right? So then we fast forward here to Atlanta, and this is where Storm is preparing to give that speech. And she starts coughing. And when she looks down at her hand, she sees the blood. So despite this, she's pushing on, but it's clear that something's wrong with her here, right? So she begins, she's like, I am Storm, mistress of the elements. Long have I been a member of the brave X-Men, and I look forward to doing great things with the mighty Avengers. As much as I adore sharing the goals and values of my comrades, I must take on my own goals, values, and identity. Declare them to the world so that the innocent may rest easy and the wicked may tremble in fear. But first, I would like to present you a haven in a day of adversity, a solace during difficult times, and a refuge in the hours of need, the Storm Sanctuary. And she continues, she's like, I want not only mutants, but humans, sorcerers, interplanetary immigrants, superhumans, gods, and everyone who calls this planet home to look up in their moments of trouble and find relief because Storm has made their skies her new home. But then she's like, however, to truly soar to great heights, I must first shed the shackles that weigh me down so heavily. She's like, the manifestation of mutant abilities is a coming of age for our kind, a beautiful, treasured experience, but it can also be punishing, cruel to both the wielder, loved ones, and those we least expect. It saddens me greatly that the tragic events of Oklahoma City, and at this point here, she's revealing the truth about what happened at the power plant, that the devastating disaster that was caused by a mutant and not the engineers. As she shares these like heartfelt words, the joy among the people turns to hate, which is not surprising, right? Love, they say, morphs into fear. And the people that were present at this live broadcast that she was doing here, this live presentation, they start to leave their seats. And the mutants who are beginning to regain public favor right now they're once again becoming targets of disdain once again. But then something really interesting happens here, because beyond the planet, beyond the solar system, beyond even the universe, someone is watching her, and it's Eternity. Now, Eternity is an abstract entity here embodying the Marvel Universe, along with his sister Infinity, someone that we've seen before. And he says, I am Eternity, the beginning with no end, and I have found you worthy, Aurora Monroe, to me, my eternal Storm. Now, of course, I can't ignore the fact that this dude said to me, you know, like to me, my X-Men. But what's intriguing here is that Eternity has chosen Storm to be his avatar right now in an upcoming fight. Now, it doesn't really say it here, but what we know based on what has been announced so far is that there's going to be an upcoming event here where we're going to have this one world under Doom, because now that Doom is the Sorcerer Supreme, he's going to be enacting his rule. But like, while that is going on, sort of kind of like adjacent to that, Eternity is going to be having his own battle here against Oblivion. Now, Oblivion is the embodiment here of the Void. So Storm is going to be Eternity's avatar in this sort of cosmic battle here. And that is what is this whole thing that Eternity is doing right now is going to lead up to. But what makes this weird is what happens next, right? Because in the meantime, like, we pick up on Storm, or after I should say, we pick up on Storm out in Lagos, Nigeria, 24 hours left, or it says 24 hours left. Now, what that means is that she has 24 hours left to live. And we know that this is because now of the radiation poisoning, which to me is a little bit confusing, because I'm thinking, like, now that she's the Eternal Storm, wouldn't this kind of nullify the poisoning? So either way, let's press on. So there's a big ship right now that is surrounding these smaller boats, and the captain warns them to stand down, but they ignore, and then they start firing. So Storm arrives looking, by the way, absolutely freaking amazing. Like, oh my gosh, she looks great here. And she stops the attackers, right? There's like this epic little moment right here where she like drop kicks this dude in the chest, and then she uses her lightning to take care of the rest of the Jamokes. So Afterwards, she lands on this big ship, but she starts coughing more intensely than she was before. Now, one crew member, right, tries to get her some water, but the captain stops him because he's like, listen, I need you, talking to Storm now, to leave immediately. Now, what he's saying here is that he doesn't want her mutant abilities to accidentally ignite their fuel or other flammable cargo that's there, especially after seeing the news from Oklahoma. So then Storm, she like takes her hand from her mouth. This one, there is way more quantity of blood than we had seen before, right? So then later on, we see a montage here of Storm at the Storm Sanctuary, and it's showing a countdown of like how many hours she has left to live. It's like 14 hours, then 13 hours, then 12, then 11, and then down to 10 hours. And in this one scene here, like while she's showering, she goes to shampoo her hair, and then like a massive chunk of it comes out. So then she goes to like this junkyard, but it actually like really isn't a junkyard at the same time. And she presents her Avengers ID to a man in order to be able to gain access or to gain entry into it. So he tells her that she can walk right through the gate, but she's like, this is locked. But he explains to her, he's like, no, this is just an illusion. So she walks through, and then she finds herself at an unknown location here in Arkansas called the Night and Day Hospital, which is a modern version here of the Night Nurse Clinic, which is a special medical facility that treats superheroes. So the doctor that walks in to see her, his name is Dr. Day. And when he sees her, he's like, oh, it's you. So then Storm is like, do I know you? But then he's like, you're an X-Men, and I do not treat X-Men. So she thinks it's because of his lack of expertise here in mutant anatomy, but he corrects her. He's like saying he knows mutant physiology well. And then she accuses him of discrimination, and he admits, he's like, yeah, I thought I made that clear, which to me was actually kind of savage. But there's actually more to the story than that, because he explains that 80% of his patients are mutants and that they treat them for free. He says it's not mutant discrimination, but it's actually X-Men discrimination. He doesn't treat X-Men. That's pretty much basically his number one rule. And he elaborates, he's like, when him and Nightmare started this hospital here, Tony Stark cut them a huge check on behalf of the Avengers and ForceWorks. And then Doctor Strange consults on behalf of the Defenders here. Reed Richards supplies medical equipment on behalf of the Fantastic Four. Danny Rand donated on behalf of the Heroes for Hire. Even Moon Knight paid cash, and everyone basically chipped in, and the X-Men did not. So then he continues, he's like, you guys conquered death on your little Krakoan island with your miracle pills. But before he could go on, like Storm, she feels the guilt at this point, right? So she says, let's settle this then, and offers him a ruby that belonged to her mother as a gift on behalf of the X-Men. And she tells him that she would like for him to have this if it means that more mutants can continue to benefit from their services here for free. So initially this catches him off guard, but he concedes. He's like, yo, I never thought that this day would come, but the X-Men are welcome here anytime. And to me, that kind of just felt a little bit too easy, but let's move on. So he starts writing some things down here without explaining. So Storm is like, yo, what's going on? You're writing quite a bit here. And that's when he tells her that she has a form of radiation syndrome. And we learn here that he's a mutant himself with the ability of medical diagnosis, and how he didn't stay on Krakoa because people without resurrection protocols needed him. He explains that there's no medical cure for the variation of radiation syndrome that she has, and he sends a referral letter here ahead of her to the doctor that will be attending to her, who is a former Sorcerer Supreme. So a lot of you guys probably already know who this is, who specializes in dark magic. How he's currently on a sabbatical, so she'll have to visit him at his secondary residence. And he warns that you better hurry because you only have 6 hours left to live at this point. So on our way there, like the irony is highlighted here that only hours ago that Storm was above or high above Nigeria, a nation known for its dark magic, the very dark magic that she now needs to save her life. How many dark spells taught in covens and dens of sorcerers can be traced back to this nation as their origin. How out of all these spells, one is most known as Ile. After fulfilling certain conditions, the word is uttered and the victim plummets to their doom. Another interpretation of Ile is trash, or better yet, ground, because as she says, what soars must one day fall. And at this moment, a giant whale like leaps out into the sky, and Storm screams, oblivion waits, as she begins to fall. We then find out that the master of dark magic that they're talking about here doesn't reside in Nigeria, not Latveria, not Dormammu's dark dimension, or any nation that you would easily consider. The sorcerer's location here is in Haiti. And then we hear him speak. He says, "You seek the assistance of a sorcerer, you descendant of Ashek. You share blood with Agamotto, the first sorcerer supreme, yet human illness dominates you in a battle to the death, unable to cast a simple defense spell. What would you do if your mutant abilities were taken from you, Aurora Monroe? Prepare yourself, goddess, for you are in the presence of the gunner of gods." And then they start to list out his titles. Some of them I can't even pronounce, so I'm not even honestly gonna try, but the Hungun Supreme, the Shaman. Ultimately here, we see Dr. Voodoo, and he says, "Hello, Storm, I will be attending to you this fine evening." Now, we haven't seen Dr. Voodoo or Brother Voodoo in a while here. As mentioned, he was once the Sorcerer Supreme back when Doctor Strange lost his position for using dark magic. The irony of that, right? And we've seen him battle, of course, with the Avengers against Dormammu. So with this knowledge here of dark magic, he's definitely the perfect person to heal Storm. But I can't help but wonder, like, if Storm is now, once again, the Avatar of Eternity here, why isn't she already healed? And why wasn't the radiation poisoning kind of nullified here? But listen, I'll leave you with that thought here. Let me know what you think about the story so far down below in the comments. Subscribe for more content here on the channel, and check out our other videos over to the right. And until next time, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin the Comic. Bye.